Welcome to Business of Design. Business of Design is the world's best business training for interior design professionals like you. If you're ready to implement an exact business model for running a streamlined, profitable business, field-tested by thousands of design professionals around the world, head to businessofdesign.com and get started today. It's time to dramatically improve your business and transform your life. Business of Design. There's only one.
Hello. We're so glad you're here. As promised, part 2 with Bruce Philp. If you listened to part 1 last week, I know you're hanging to find out what else he's going to teach us. And if you didn't listen to part 1, oh my gosh, go back and listen to it. I have earmarked these as favorite Business of Design podcasts. And there are so many, but these stand out. And the words he uses to teach what can sometimes feel like a really complicated lesson on branding and marketing are so crystal clear, and they just work for me, and I know they're going to work for you. We're so glad you're here. Let's hear some announcements from Cheryl, and we'll get right into the show.
Thanks, Kimberly. I want to take a quick moment to talk about Business of Design membership, which I know I do a lot, but this time I want to answer one of the questions I get asked all the time, which is, what is the difference between monthly and annual membership? Pricing. With a monthly membership, there's no long-term commitment and you pay a small monthly fee as you go. By committing to annual membership, you're going to save 2 months' fees. Beyond pricing, the answer is nothing. Both give you the same access to every program, every system, and every download, every coaching call, and access to me for spot coaching by email as you need it. Why? Because everyone's starting point isn't the same. We want you to have immediate access to the tools and strategies that will make the biggest difference to you right away. Now, I know we're often compared to programs that charge $3,000, $4,000, even $5,000 up front, but the truth is we know our systems work, and we believe that every designer, no matter where you're at in your business, deserves access. That's why membership starts with a small upfront fee. From there, you can make small incremental changes month over month, and those changes add up. Our members tell us time and again, membership doesn't just pay for itself, it actually makes them more profitable year after year. And I'm sure you've heard so many of our members share this themselves on the podcast, and you can read hundreds of testimonials on our website. So whether you join monthly or commit to annual, the outcome is the same: a stronger, more profitable, more sustainable business, and we'll be here to support you every step of the way. So please head to businessofdesign.com, click on membership, and get started today. If you have questions about membership, scroll to the bottom of that page and sign up to do a discovery call with me. I am happy to answer any questions that you have that are holding you back from joining. I would love to speak with you. Thanks so much.
Bruce is a 30-year veteran of branded marketing, and he's an award-winning author. I mentioned Consumer Republic last time, which is a book that really helped change my thinking about branding. There is a link to the book on our website. Definitely check it out. Bruce describes himself as an optimist with experience. I love that because I feel that perhaps that describes me too. Bruce is co-founder of Heuristic, a boutique consultancy that helps new and transitioning brands find profit and purpose. And he runs that company, of course, with his partner, Lyndon Courtemanche. I definitely wanted Bruce to come back because I had some follow-up questions after the first interview. And in particular, I wanted to go a little bit deeper into this idea of imposter syndrome. It startled me a little to discover that I'm not the only one who wakes up some days and thinks, why would anyone hire me? Not a good thought to have, and certainly not a fact that is reflected in the calls that come into my office and the experience of working with the repeat clients that I have. But nonetheless, there it is. I have it. So I'm going to ask Bruce about that. And I'll get follow-up on some of the other questions I wanted to know more about. But I really got thinking after the second conversation about a few of the turning points, I would say, in my own maturity as a business owner. Those moments where I could see that I had begun to take myself seriously. So, for example, I was thinking about the time that I sent my contract via email to a potential customer. And back then, we used to send a Word doc. And I sent it to the customer, and it was returned to me with multiple changes throughout. And I remember looking at this contract that had been changed and initially having a little read through, and then next having the thought that, wait a minute, this is my contract. This is the contract that you sign if you want to work with me. I'm not hiring you, you're hiring me. And between the two of us, I have more experience running a design firm than you do, so I'm going to stick with my contract. And so our response to that customer is, wow, thank you. That was an interesting exercise. We should have sent you the contract in a PDF form. It is not open for negotiation. These are the rules that we've put in place because we know how to run a successful design project. And he turned around and signed the contract as is. But it did give me some insights into some of the things he was worried about might happen. So we had some conversations around that. And I think going forward, we might even have amended our contract just a little bit to address some of those concerns. Because at the end of the day, I want that contract to be signed without hesitation, without reservation. And that means it has to be so clear to customers that they have no fear about signing it. I also have noticed that I no longer will engage in negotiating my fees. Now, that can happen in a straightforward manner. You're how much an hour? I think that's really high compared to other designers. And the answer is, this is what we charge. We know our value. This is our business model. Get on board if you want to work with us, great. And it can also happen which I find a little bit trickier, when the client says something like, but I've already paid you so much. I thought we were done with billable hours now. And I've learned to be very clear and very firm about the fact that we will be charging billable hours through the end of the project. And it doesn't matter if it's an hourly fee contract or a flat fee project. In both cases, we will be charging for our hours up to and including the end of the project. And then the most recent evidence that I have finally come into my own and I'm finally taking myself as seriously as I want to be taken by clients is twofold. Number one, I'm in a position where I'm able to choose my clients. And thankfully, that was something that Bruce and Lyndon brought up when they decided to approach rebranding Kimberley Seldon Design Group, which they're currently doing right now. They brought up the fact that I should be in a position at this point in my career to be able to choose the clients I want to work with, and that message should be broadcasted on my website. So we all agreed that's a great idea. I love that thought. And then I've noticed also that I will now select clients not just based on whether or not I think I'm going to love the client, which is important, but I'll also base that decision on whether or not I think I can photograph the project at the end. Because the reality is I only have so many more projects I want to do in my life. And I'm at a point where I can pick and choose. So why not choose those projects that are going to allow me to take great photographs, put those on my website, and sit back and at the end of the day be able to really be excited and proud of the work that I've done. So that's kind of a new barometer. And again, I think that points directly to the fact that I'm taking myself very seriously as a business owner. And I don't for a minute think I could have done that when I first stepped into the game, in my late 20s. So don't judge yourself if you're not there yet, but maybe you are there. Maybe you're close to that, or maybe you're willing to just take a risk and step up into something that's a little bit scary, but a little bit exciting. I think you're going to get a lot out of this episode, and I was particularly happy with his takeaways, and he's going to tell you a little bit more about each one of them. But after every podcast on the website, if you look at the show, the episode number, you'll see that we kind of highlight the best takeaways there for you. So if they mention an app that they love, or they mention a website that they love, or something or other that's going to make your project life so much better, we'll put that right on our website. So make sure you go to businessofdesign.com.
When we design, we don't just decorate rooms, we build and renovate homes. Anyone who's been through a renovation knows this. the wrong windows or doors can undo months of planning. They affect how light falls, how the space functions, even how a family feels when they walk in the door. As designers, we're not just picking fabrics and finishes. We're making foundational choices that shape the way people live. That's why Renewal by Andersen created their interior designer loyalty program. It's not just about ordering doors and windows. It's about giving us the tools and support we need to keep our projects running smoothly. Because when the logistics are handled, we can stay focused on what matters, creating homes that truly work for our clients. The best part? You don't have to go it alone. With a dedicated Renewal by Andersen contact on your side, you've got an expert partner who makes sure the right product shows up at the right time. Projects stay on track, deadlines are met, and the stress dial gets turned way down. Plus, you'll earn rewards and receive exclusive discounts along the way. We build homes. Let Renewal by Andersen help you build them better. Apply today at renewalbyandersendesigners.com. Subject to program terms and conditions.
Bruce Philp, you came back. That was so nice of you.
I think you were a bit coercive about that, actually. You made me come back.
You think waiting in front of your driveway was too much?
It's a bit aggressive, but you can't be successful without being aggressive.
Exactly. Okay. Well, we just had more to talk about. That's the thing. You were amazing in your first podcast, and now I have some more follow-up questions, which I think you knew was coming. Mm-hmm. But one thing that got me thinking, you suggested a one-person retreat with enough bottles of wine to get you through it, which if I have wine, the retreat's over. I'm just happy I'm not going to get the work done. But you did that as a way of getting us to deep dive a little bit into those three things you said were important for brand, which are purpose, positioning, and character, right?
Yep.
Okay, so that was the last episode. That's what we talked about. And you're all going to go back and listen to part 1 if you want to hear that. I want to talk a little bit more about something you touched on in that episode as well, and we didn't have time, which was imposter syndrome.
Right.
Start there.
Right. So everybody probably knows what imposter syndrome is, the belief that whatever job you're doing, you're actually not equal to it and you're a fraud and no one's just found you out yet, but they're gonna, and that'll be terrible. And I think everybody suffers from that to some extent. But I think creative people they live in a special kind of imposter syndrome hell because unlike a normal job, he said, making quotation marks with his fingers, you can't be a creative person just by working hard. You have to have talent, and so we believe that we have this muse, and this muse is the one who gives us our ideas that will allow us to make a living, and we don't feel like we have complete control over that thing, right? So it's kind of like, owning a cat. Like, you're never really sure if it's going to be there in the morning. So creative people tend to kind of deal with this in one. Do you want me to talk a little bit about how to cope with that? Or?
Yes, please.
Yeah. So just to kind of to restate that, everyone who works in the creative industry has this problem, and if they don't, they're probably psychopaths. And the challenge of making it through decades of a career like that lies in how you manage it.
So wait, so just right there, it doesn't matter if you've been doing it a while, it's not going to disappear.
No.
So if you're new and you're feeling it, you can't console yourself with, this is going to disappear after I have a few clients.
No.
And if you've received all kinds of awards and accolades and it creeps up, it doesn't mean you're broken. It's just part of how we are.
Yeah, I don't personally think it ever goes away. In fact, in speaking for myself, if I woke up one morning and didn't think the work I was doing was challenging in some way, if I wasn't somewhat afraid of failing at it or being discovered to be a fraud, I would start to worry that maybe I shouldn't be doing this anymore.
Right.
This episode is brought to you by Aquavado and the House of Roll Studio in Toronto. Aquavado is a trade-focused plumbing showroom designed to support interior designers with expert product guidance, educational support, and concierge-level service. Inside, the House of Roll studio has created selections of Perrin & Rowe, Roll, Shaw's, Victoria & Albert, Emtek, and Schwab.
Learn more at aquavato.com/designers. That's AQUAVATO.com/designers. Okay, go on. Now fix me. I mean, tell us what we can do.
Well, so I think the first thing is to accept that this is how it is, and kind of make friends with it. I think you have to view this as a sort of superpower. So it's the thing that keeps you honest and motivates you, and you deal with it that way as a kind of companion that drives you. And with creative people in my industry, I've found that they tend to drift in one of two directions. They either become less curious over time, or they become more curious over time. And the people who become more curious are the ones who survive imposter syndrome the best. So, what I mean by that is that they make a point of always putting things in. Always filling their brain with new, fresh stuff. And I think you do this by traveling. Right. I do it by reading and by trying to be an avid student of pop culture. And I just try to keep pouring stuff into my brain. And so this has three benefits that I think help imposter syndrome a lot. One is that it keeps you stimulated, and I think if your mind is active and you're kind of seeing new exciting things that you haven't seen before, and you're seeing what work other people are doing and people who are better than you are, it distracts you from that little black devil that's telling you you're not up to the job. I think secondly, it keeps your work fresh, and that's a good antidote for imposter syndrome. And the third is that it kind of helps you always be the smartest person in the room. So if you kind of just know things, if you can refer to the work of others or make references to other things in popular culture that are relevant to what you're doing, your client is going to feel like you must be an expert. And the feeling that you're an expert kind of reflects back at you and gives you confidence. This is even though it's more work, it's a far happier place to dwell than the people who just think that that their muse is lurking in there and sort of praying that it comes out today for the meeting, and then kind of not knowing what's going to happen. Did you know what I mean? If that's familiar.
She's hiding.
That's right.
Come out, you devil! You.
I have nothing to say. Pull the fire alarm. Yeah. So it doesn't sound like an obvious antidote to imposter syndrome, but it really works for me, and it's something that I've observed in others. Is just keep pouring stuff into your brain and
outside maybe your general realm. Like you said, for me, it's travel.
Yeah.
Of course, there's lots of design when I travel, but just moving and going out and doing wine tastings and climbing rocks and things like that seems to help a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. There's the great danger in taking your talent and putting it under glass because you think it's fragile and has to be preserved. You need to tend that garden.
Okay, and there's a difference then between the feeling imposter syndrome and actually not knowing something and then getting the right people to help you fix that problem. Right? Like we talked last time about the fact that I thought I could just kind of design my own website because I'm good with design. So how hard could it be? It's color, it's font. That's nothing to do with imposter syndrome. That's literally outside my wheelhouse.
Right. And I think that we have to be confident that we look like we know what we're doing when we know that it's time to get help, if that makes sense. There's this wonderful quote, which I cannot reproduce from memory, but from Samuel Johnson. And he was the guy who talked about, people who prefer price over quality being the lawful prey of, shysters. And anyway, it's that quote that they used to hang in Baskin-Robbins stores. Anyway,
I was too busy looking for peanut butter, fudge, whatever. What was that one?
So he said that knowledge is of two kinds. You either know a thing or you know where to go to find out about it. And he used more elegant language than that. But I really think that's true. And I think that when you're sitting across the table from a client and you say, I don't know how to solve this particular problem, but I know someone who does, you aren't giving up any power at all. You're giving them confidence.
That is so true. And that is something that's so hard to do when you're first starting out, because when a client says, how many pot lights do I need? I think somehow I'm supposed to know, when in fact I'm not an electrician and I'm not a lighting designer.
Yeah.
So there's no shame in saying, let me ask my electrician and lighting designer that question and get you a proper answer.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, love that. I'm surprised that you didn't mention motorcycle time as your way to keep filling your curiosity bank, because you have an awesome podcast, This Motorcycle Life, which I listen to, and it's actually made me want to ride a motorcycle, which is crazy because I don't really want to ride a motorcycle. So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So when I go for rides, I sometimes will think, but the thinking is very, it's very sort of free form. I won't get on a bike and head out with the intention of solving a problem. I'll just let it, kind of percolate away in there. But just as often, the benefit that it gives me is that it fills my head with something else. When you're riding, and there's lots of stuff in life that works this way, skiing, horseback riding, there's lots of things that have this benefit. When you're riding a motorcycle, you have to generally be 100% focused all the time on the present moment. And, a couple of hours of that is extremely refreshing. You come back feeling empowered and feeling, as if your brain has just taken a fresh shower and toweled off. And that's really therapeutic. And I kind of think it helps my work, but I can't prove it.
Yeah, I think for me, that's yoga for sure. I just empty my head. No matter what I go into the studio with, I leave it on the mat. I come out and I'm just empty. So I think you do need to find some way of doing that for yourself sometimes.
Yeah, I do too.
We ended episode 23 with me saying that once you guys rebuilt my Business of Design brand, and that actually created a bigger vision for myself, I grew into that brand. And I'm halfway through that experience with the Kimberley Seldon Design Group brand. I'm not there yet because we haven't finished yet, but I anticipate that's going to happen. Why does that happen? Why do you step up into a space that you create for yourself on paper or virtually?
Well, I think part of the answer lies in the fact that when you are stepping up into a larger definition of yourself, it's usually a definition someone else has given you, and that might be a mentor, or a coach, or it could be a branding consultant. But when it comes from outside, you're more inclined to believe it. Almost none of us who have a healthy psyche truly is free of insecurities and doubts. Plus which, we all tend to self-handicap, which means that, or another expression that you'll hear sometimes is sandbagging, where, we'll kind of act as though we're not very good hockey players, but actually we're amazing hockey players. And, by reducing everybody's expectations, we reduce the pressure on ourselves and then hopefully go out and surprise them with how awesome we are. But that's, for a creative person, a little bit toxic. So you don't want to sandbag too much. The thing about someone else giving you, a wardrobe to wear, if you like, is that it feels more true because it's without all of your hang-ups, right? And so I think that's a little bit part of what you're talking about. We've had the experience, of talking about your brand where you've in the same moment been a bit startled by what we've suggested to you, but at the same time it felt true, and that's the best kind of. That's the best kind of stepping up that you could possibly do, I think.
Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about because we are in the middle of doing the KSDG brand, and you have written, I don't even know what you call it, but anyway, your presentation to me presented a very serious interior designer, or at least someone who's very serious about interior design. And I think of myself as being such a jokester and always having fun, but that really is not reflected in that brand. And when you said it, I thought, oh my God, I'm a totally different person when I'm on the job. I am so focused and so driven and so serious. Right. And I think that, in your case, you should trust the fact that people who know you through the media, if they were to then someday work with you, would not be disappointed, but in fact would be delighted that you are so kind of fun and sparkling and charming, when that's appropriate. But when it's time to get to work, you're deadly serious and disciplined. Like, that's good, not bad. Yeah, okay. But I don't think I ever would have come to that conclusion if you hadn't pointed that out to me. And now I feel like I can kind of own it, which is great.
Well, I think that is a real thing. There are a lot of people who react that way to getting a new suit or a new car or whatever particular kind of symbols of success speak to you. That if you buy just a little bit ahead of where you are, so kind of it's in the fake it till you make it kind of, you do feel the need to kind of occupy it and own it. And the truth is that, to take your example, I mean, you may have felt that you had to grow into it, but from our perspective, that's who you are. You're the one that didn't think you were big enough for it. We were quite confident that you were. And I suspect that would be true of everybody listening to this podcast.
Well, yeah, it's interesting how you don't see yourself sometimes as the world does see you. I'd never heard it put that way, imposter syndrome, but I bet a lot of people listening are going, oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Creative people especially. I mean, we are the people who get up in the morning and look in the mirror and we see that spot. Nobody else can see it in the whole wide world, but we see it.
But we're sure other people can see it. Like, I'm positive.
We're sure it's the size of a manhole cover.
You're going to hire me? Are you sure? Me?
Yeah. Did you see this thing on my face? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. The other thing you did in the last episode 23, you made a case for the fact that being a brand allows you to project a more complete image of yourself to clients and gives those clients confidence. So my question for you is, what does confidence or what does a client having confidence in me or you look like? What practical stuff happens when the client has confidence in the person they've hired?
Yeah, so I think the answer is more what doesn't happen. If the process is going smoothly and you're not being asked to defend everything you say and all that stuff, then you can be reasonably sure that the person who's hired you thinks you know what you're doing. And so in my case, if I'm not getting quibbling over my quote, if I'm not getting overbriefed, or I'm over directed in the brief, if my client is not focusing too much on process, if they're not demanding to look under the hood too much about the way I'm going to use the information they give me, then that's all an indication that, or if there's too many milestones, for example, it's like, well, we need to check in every week because, I think you possibly are stupid and therefore I need to keep it, so it's the absence of things that indicates confidence. If they're not asking all those questions and if they're not demanding to know exactly what you're doing with every minute of your time and they're not doubting the accuracy of your pricing and stuff like that, then you can be reasonably sure that they're confident. And the reason for that is the reason you can be reasonably sure is that you have to remember what they went through before they called you. They didn't get up one morning and say, let's do a thing with the kitchen. This was probably a long process. There was probably lots of debate and anxiety in the home before they called anybody. They're probably just as concerned that you're judging them as you might be that they're judging you. Right. And they probably committed more money to it than they're totally comfortable with. And so there's this blend of excitement and anxiety. So if you remember that is their state of mind and then consider the fact that they're not questioning everything you say, I'm going to suggest that equals confidence.
That definitely would be confidence. And the fact is, you said this last time, they want you to be the answer. When you arrive, they're hoping you will have a strong opinion about what they ought to do.
Yeah. In no universe has anyone ever said, let's renovate the house, and the first thing we're going to do is call an idiot.
Okay, good point. It's helpful, I think, for me to hear that you suffer a little bit too, because it's so easy for us to look at the other guy and say, that person over there, she's doing it perfectly. She's really got it going on. But the fact of the matter is, more often than I think any of us are aware of, we all struggle with the same problems. So you did have to finally run it through your own paces and come out the other side. And do you think part of why people challenged you less is because it looked like it was corporate? That was my experience. The minute I turned my contract from being about Kimberley Seldon into Kimberley Seldon Design Group, KSDG Inc., that corporate vibe, I think, pushed or made clients, I guess, feel that they couldn't disagree with me as much. I don't know. Am I making sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think, it's funny. I think it sort of says that you're playing a longer game. So in my world, for example, if you're consulting, under your own name, the possibility is that you're just between jobs, or that this is kind of a hobby and you're semi-retired or whatever, right? Like it signals a tentativeness about the business. But as soon as you hang a shingle out and it's got a logo and a name and it's got some profile, they kind of know you're planning to be around, and so they sense your own commitment to the project. And there's also somehow it seems to affect the power exchange a little bit. It's less that they're doing you a favor now, and they're more. I mean, it took me 20 years to be able to have the courage to say in meetings, people who listen to me make money, and people who don't.
That's a good line. I'm going to try to figure out how I can use that in my business, but It's not quite the same.
Feel free. I'll send you a bill, and it will have my logo on it.
Okay, now for that person because I get this a lot, they work at home, they have a home office, maybe their office is in the basement, they will say things like, well, if I act like that, it's not the truth. And what you're saying is, don't be ridiculous. It's a virtual world. It doesn't matter that you work out of your office. I mean, you admitted to us that you work from home sometimes in your pajamas. You have onesies. I'm pretty sure you have onesies, am I right?
Yeah.
That have little mounties on them. I understand. Yeah. But you don't tell that to clients. You don't lead with that at the client meeting. So why do you think, I think it's particularly true for women, why do you think women feel that they're a fraud if they don't immediately tell the client that they work from home and have a home office?
That question is above my pay grade, especially I think when you're talking about about the kinds of people who are listening to this podcast. I just think we tend to self-handicap because we're afraid of the pressure. We're afraid of the pressure that putting it out there is going to put on us, and that's absolutely human. I mean, I still experience. I constantly feel like I've got one foot on the brake and one foot on the gas because I don't want to be too busy, but I don't want to not be too. I mean, it's just a thing we do, right? Whereas if you come out there and say, if you go out in the world and say, okay, well, here's my card and this is my brand name and this is my big fancy company, and you can go to my website. I mean, you're saying I'm this guy. I can do this. I'm the best, and that's terrifying, right?
Oh my gosh. What you just said reminds me of a scene from a movie that I love, Moonstruck. You know, in that movie, Olympia Dukakis is asking everyone why husbands cheat, and nobody's giving her a satisfying answer until the last guy comes in and says, I don't know, maybe they fear death. And she goes, yes, that's it. So you just said we self-handicap as a way of protecting ourselves.
Yeah.
Yes. Hello. I just met a designer yesterday. I was at Cravat sourcing fabrics. She came up to me and she said something that I've heard 100 times and I don't know how to respond to it. And it's this. Well, I have projects, but my husband makes a really good living, so I don't really have to worry too much. But she was overwhelmed and overworked and was kind of making excuses for why she hasn't gotten her business stuff together. Is that self-handicapping?
Well, yeah. I mean, if we pretend that these aren't people and we just think of them as businesses, and we brought in, McKinsey or somebody, they'd say, well, your problem is you're not charging enough money. If you on the one hand have no pressure, to earn, and on the other hand you've got too many, then we're going to go ahead and guess that you may not be using price as a demand management tool, to use the marketing jargon. So in a sense, it is that is self-handicapping, and there are people in this world who are comforted by being busy, who think that if they are busy, they are necessary, and if they are necessary, they are safe, and that's a hang-up. It is, just as you say, it's another form of self-handicapping.
Wow, demand marketing pressure. Did you just say that? Demand marketing pressure.
Demand management. Pricing is a form of demand management.
Demand management.
Yeah.
Tell me about that thing.
Well, basically, the higher you raise your price, the fewer customers you will get. The trick is that in any product category, it could be beer or snow tires. It doesn't have to be designers or branding consultants. That the relationship between those two things is not linear. So, you may find that by increasing your rates by 50%, you don't see much drop off, with clients at all. But by increasing them by 75, you might see 2/3 of them drop off. I mean, so there's this concept called elasticity that we don't really know for sure. So you use that tool carefully, but the chances are that if you're running off your feet and you're not making enough money, you're not charging enough. Or to put it more positively, if you're run off your feet and you're not making enough money, it means you are worth more than you thought you were.
Right. The best time to raise your fee is when you're super busy.
Right.
Yeah. Wow. That's good. A lot of people are afraid to raise their fee because the fear is I'll never work again. But my experience has been the higher the fee goes, the better clients I get, not meaning nicer people or, richer people are better people, but meaning that the clients I get tend to listen to me.
Right.
They tend to take my advice. I'm not arguing with them and second guessing myself.
Yeah, and I think it goes back a little bit to the theme we talked about earlier about how we are not the best judges of our own value, and this really. The rubber really kind of hits the road when we're talking about fees. In our business, we charge by the day rather than by the hour, and in the few years since we opened our practice, my billable rate has gone up by 50%, and I've never had anybody squawk at all. In fact, I have a suspicion that my larger corporate clients are reassured by that.
They're reassured by that because it's an indication that you have the chops to handle their project.
Right.
Yes. So conversely, a too low fee might trigger insecurity in your client.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Just as, showing up, badly dressed in a dirty old car would.
Yes. Everybody go get a new car. Thank you, Bruce, for permission. Everyone's getting a new car. If only I were Oprah.
That's right.
I'd be sending you a car right now. So practically speaking, they want me to be the answer, but how does that translate into how I should behave? So for example, when I first started, I used to give them 5, 6, 7 options because I thought that made them aware of how smart I was and how brilliant I was, and I could make anything work. But I could see the look on their face was just sheer terror, like they didn't know how to narrow down so many options. So as part of they want me to be the answer, delivering on that, the fact that I now give them one choice or 2 choices?
Yeah, I mean, I think the decision about how many options to present them kind of comes at the end of a process that, and if you're asking yourself that question, then you may already have screwed up, as it were.
Oh, I screw. Oh, yeah, pretty much every day. Do you have time? Do you have alcohol?
I think yes. Yes, I do. In the car. No, that's not true.
Oh, wow. Don't say that. That's not good.
Don't do that at home, kids.
No, not so much honesty.
No.
We have to dial it back a little.
I really think, I don't want to sort of overstress this, but I think it's important to act like the answer. If they hope you're the answer, then act like the answer. And so I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. We had an engagement last year in which there was another consultant involved who I won't name or describe, but we'll call him Sad Consultant. And he, as I do, worked from a home office, and he had a pretty sterling resume for what he did. But he sort of showed up wearing like these rumpled Dockers and a plaid shirt, and he had this his laptop was sort of not current, and it was in this banged up bag, and he seemed to take some pride in being kind of like the Columbo of consultants, and his demeanor was sort of. I think he acted sort of bored. I've seen this all a million times. Don't worry, I've got the answer here in my sad, banged up little computer bag, and I think my car keys are somewhere here in my rumpled old Dockers. And like it was just the theater of his being there was not confidence inspiring. And And so, as a result, and it got worse. So when he started to develop presentation materials, the PowerPoint presentations looked like a train wreck, and they were sort of busy and ugly and weird colors, and none of these things individually was damaging, and we could say that this is all superficial and it doesn't matter, but it does matter. The week that you and I are recording this, not to get political, but you may recall that there was a kerfuffle last week about the First Lady of the United States heading to Texas to see the devastation in that hurricane and getting on Air Force One in those Manolo Blahniks.
Those heels.
So practically speaking, who cares? But everyone decided that meant something, and they judged her according to what they thought it meant. Well, I'm going to tell you that that's how the whole world works.
Right.
And so it's super important that every step along the way you act like the answer. Be disciplined. Have a notepad. Have an agenda for the meeting. We're going to cover 5 things today. And here's we'll be back to you on the 1st with this, and on the 15th with that. Each of these things, even though they don't bear directly on the quality of the work, says to the person who's hired you, I'm on this. Don't worry. I'm a pro. I've done this 1,000 times. It's everything is under control. And the result of a process that both looks disciplined and is disciplined is that when you bring them the answer, they're more likely to say, "Of course, that's the answer." And when I ran my agency, we made a real discipline of this, and the result was that very often, combined with a lot of strategic effort, we would go and present one thing to clients, and it would be the first thing that we presented, and they would buy it.
Yeah.
And that's got a lot to do with how confident they were when the meeting began.
So what are some other things then we can do to boost ourselves into a better, stronger version of ourselves? Are there practical things that we should all be thinking about?
Yeah, I think so. I think that process is a long-term, it's a lifelong commitment. Like your yoga thing. It's not I'm going to go do this thing tomorrow and then that'll solve it. It's a way of being. I have this little cartoon that I just love. It's a picture of a guy in a meeting, and a bunch of people sitting around a boardroom table, and they're all wearing business attire except he's wearing a Batman suit. And the caption is, dress for the job you want. And I relate to this because I wish I was Batman. But also, I just love the audacity of it. And I think that's a big part of the answer is to, know that you have more license than you think. And kind of, just, I don't want to say fake it till you make it, which was an expression that my beloved coach used to use a lot, but I don't. It's not a me thing, but it's not a
act as if.
Exactly. Yeah. So then there's sort of 3 pieces of advice that I give young people in our business, which if they follow, I think results in having that kind of gravity and presence and credibility. That's what I think is what you're talking about. And the 3 things are these. First of all, never stop trying to get better. You should that when the day comes that you don't think you need training anymore, then you might consider an alternative career because you're toast. Find me a pilot, for example, who thinks he doesn't need any more training. So the first thing is keep getting better. The second thing is remember that the work you do has a short life. Now, this is truer for me than it would be for you or your listeners. But the fact is that as the years have gone by, very few people remember the ads we did, but they remember what it was like to work with us. And that's what endures. And that's why the phone keeps ringing 10 and 20 and 30 years later is because of what you were like. So remember that the experience has to be positive, and then remember that your network, that is the most important garden to tend. And then the third piece of advice is remember your stories. There's a bad habit in my industry of people believing that every new project is a blank sheet of paper and that they're doing a better job if they just pretend that they don't know anything. Whereas in fact, if you can say to a client, I've seen this before, and here's what we did, and here's what we learned, and here's how we now do it. That's super reassuring to them, and it authenticates your expertise. If you've done 100 homes or you've done 100 brands, and you're able to and you have encyclopedic knowledge of that work and what it taught you, and you can use that information to help sell your thinking to a new. You have to trust that your client is going to think that's fantastic. That's what they're paying for. That's why they're paying the big bucks, because you've done this before and you don't fail.
And the funny thing is, most creative people, certainly myself, I definitely remember the painful experiences where we tried to do X and it did not work. And so this is what we learned. And so this is what we're going to try for you now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good advice. Really, really good advice. We do like to end every episode with a little design intervention, let's call it. And it can be something you're excited about in business. It could be a TV show you saw and you love the sets. It could be a great, album that you're listening to. It could be almost anything you think might interest interior design professionals who are listening attentively.
Right. Well, obviously, this is not something that I have any expertise in, but we did just finish watching a TV series that I thought was kind of cool from a design perspective. It was called Vinyl, and it's on HBO, and I guess it was killed after one season. But it's about the record industry in New York in the 1970s. And the thing that I found, because I can sort of remember the 1970s, if I can put it that way. And I just thought whoever did the production design on this thing really did their homework and kind of got it, because it didn't end up coming across as some kind of museum of things people saw in magazines, but it felt like someone had done this who had been there. It felt very real. Apart from the cars, which is a particular raw nerve for me. I can't understand why people don't see what your cars were made before they put them in TV shows. But other than that, the clothing and the sort of design of the office spaces and other spaces were just so perfect for the period and perfect for the characters that we're trying. It's the show is pretty rowdy and a bit naughty in parts, so you got to be ready for that. But we quite enjoyed.
I'm ready.
we quite enjoyed it, and as I said, I thought the production design was just stellar.
That would be so fun. I'm going to go check that out, because I remember the 70s. I graduated from high school in 1979. So those were my years, the formative years.
That's it. Is
there a rec room somewhere in the show? Or
I don't remember that there was a rec room. They do visit LA, though. You might at one point in one episode, and you might enjoy that. They find themselves in a house in Malibu, which I doubt has changed much.
Yeah, probably not. Do you have a takeaway from your worst client ever? Do you know who your worst client ever was?
And there'd be a couple of candidates. Yeah, so this is going to sound kind of brutal, but I think one thing that we share is that we sell our opinions. And the problem with opinions is that everybody's got one. In a sane world, that being the case, the opinion that would carry the most weight would be the one with the most experience behind it. And so, in my work, very often, if I'm sitting in a room full of people and I'm sharing an opinion about something, I'll at this point in my career, I'm probably the most senior person there. I expect the people to listen. They don't have to take the advice. That is absolutely their sovereign right not to do, but they have to listen. And I have found that when that does not happen, the entire relationship is doomed and beyond salvation. It's not always easy to sort of get out of it. But if early in a relationship I find people, are interrupting me, shutting me down, disagreeing with me, dismissing me, there is no way on this green earth that this relationship is going to heal and become productive.
Wow. You know what? I just recently had someone share with me that her client was balking at the fact that she charges an hourly rate, but also shares her discount when she purchases goods and services with a client. So in other words, if she gets 20% off on a chair, the client saves 10%, she keeps 10%. He didn't think that was fair. He said that was double dipping. So she explained at the consultation why she does that. It's her business model. It's non-negotiable. Let's do this thing. And then again at the presentation, he brought it up and he was very aggressive about it. So right then and there, exactly what you said, she probably needed to get herself out of that situation with that client before ordering a bunch of furniture and being stuck.
Yeah, I mean, from what you told me, it seems highly unlikely this guy was going to turn into a pussycat after the contract was signed.
Have you ever had a client turn into a pussycat when you push back a little bit?
Yes. If it's just a question of pushing back, I mean, that can be a real, that can be a great moment. I think men are particularly bad for this, where they'll kind of circle each other like, dogs in a junkyard, and kind of test. And, if you get to a point where, guy A says, yeah, well, I don't agree. I don't think you should do that. I won't accept those terms. And guy B says, oh yeah, well, if you don't accept those terms, then I'm out of here. And guy A says, okay, I hear you. Then they're pals forever. It can work out like that. If it's not too dramatic or not too fundamental to the project, if you have a little contretemps at the beginning and it works out, then it's like the beginning of a beautiful friendship, as they said in Casablanca.
Yeah, so it really is okay to hold your ground sometimes and just say, experience has shown me that this is the better way to do this.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Conversely, your favorite clients, the best clients you've ever had, and don't use me, that's just silly. But your favorite clients, what lessons have you learned from those clients?
Yeah, so the person that I'm thinking of was actually sort of a huge client, and we worked with them for many, many years, and he sensed in me that I had a sort of overdeveloped sense of responsibility. I was sort of a classic firstborn child, Boy Scout kind of. He picked this up, and his way of dealing with me was to give me complete freedom, and to get things done the way I wanted to get them done. All I had to do was sell him the answer, and then he'd say, "Well, off you go." I mean, we would shoot TV commercials, and he wouldn't even show up. That is not a strategy that he used with anybody else, and it isn't a strategy that would work on anybody else. But me, it kept me awake at night. I was so pressured by his expectations of me and his trust in me that I outperformed, kind of again and again. I loved him for that, and I still don't have the instincts that it takes to read people that way, but I really do try because it was so profoundly effective.
Do you have red flags? Like, can you think of 3 red flags as you're interviewing or they're interviewing you, a potential client? 3 things that make you go, I don't think so.
Well, the positioning, the definition of positioning I gave you earlier was kind of sort of simplified for the purpose of this conversation, but it in marketing terms, it really asks companies to make some tough commitments about target market and differentiation. And I find that if a client is unwilling to have that conversation, if they want to sort of stay flexible and stay loose and chase the business wherever it may go, the sales guys will take care of this. Then they're not ever going to get it, and that's cool. They can run their business the way they want to, but it isn't going to make any sense for them to pay me to be there and watch them do it. So that kind of that commitment is really almost the most, for me anyway, the most foolproof test of whether we're going to get along.
Okay, as usual, Bruce, I feel like I have to go back and listen to this episode 3 or 4 times in order to get all of the knowledge that you've shared and to figure out how to apply it in my life. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome.